You may be seated. This honorable House now resumes its sitting. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor to welcome everyone to the sitting of the House of Representatives today, Wednesday, November 8, 2023, for the continuation of our State of the Constituency debate. I would like to extend a special welcome to those who are joining us online via the various social media platforms, PBCJ, live stream, and those who are seated here in the gallery. Call of the roll.
Mr. Clark, here. Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Ms. Grange, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Vaz, Mrs. Mallow Fort, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Main, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Terry Long, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Witter, Ms. Smith, Mr. Davis, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
Members, just a general reminder, there are some individuals who, for whatever reason, are absent from the House for an extended time. Please be advised that we will be checking the records so that the individual or individuals who so comply with having been absent from the Parliament over and above what is in keeping with our standing orders will appreciate you will be read out of the Parliament. So just for the benefit of any member listening, we are checking the records. House Leader, no, it does not apply to my friend.
Madam Speaker, today should not be a long session, so we would go in the order of the agenda, and at the end, we hope the constituency debate would continue and conclude at the end. So, with your permission, Madam Speaker. Statement.
Statement by Minister. We will now have Honorable Delroy Chop Casey, MP, Minister of Justice, on his feet and House Leader.
Acting House Leader, Madam Speaker.
I know.
Madam Speaker, this is a short statement on a green paper on restorative justice. Madam Speaker, restorative justice has been one of the flagship programs of the Ministry of Justice since its inception. It has proven to be an effective tool for conflict resolution and the repair of broken relationships. Madam Speaker, today I am pleased to present to this Honourable House the Restorative Justice Policy Green Paper. The revision of the policy is geared towards enabling the continued relevance of the National Restorative Justice Program, the use of restorative justice practices and sustainability for greater impact within the society. Madam Speaker, crime and violence have shown no partiality in the selection of victims. It knows no race, gender, age, community, or parish. Madam Speaker, this challenge is not a new emergence in our society. Sadly, over the last few days, we have seen evidence of this as a number of our children have been brutally murdered. This reinforces the need for greater interventions at the embryonic stage of community, of family, neighborhood, and community conflicts. Madam Speaker, it is my responsibility as the Minister of Justice to promote and expand the program that is not only timely, but also timeless. Restorative justice is a necessity and complementary to the efforts of the Ministry of National Security. The utilization of restorative justice continues to be a critical tool in the judicial space, contributing to case clearance in the courts. In the words of my RJT, Madam Speaker, crime prevention is everybody's business. Let us then give careful attention to the restorative justice program. Madam Speaker, restorative justice is a very valuable alternative justice tool. Numerous incidents of crime and violence arise from our inability to effectively resolve domestic disputes, including deadlift matters. There is a need to find better ways to resolve conflicts within our families, our schools, and our communities. Madam Speaker, restorative justice provides us with that better way. Indeed, Madam Speaker, the Administrator General's Department is on a campaign across the island now to get persons to just settle their deadlift matters and urging the persons make a will. Because when they don't make a will, Madam Speaker, families start to fight over everything. So if they make a will, it helps. But when they don't make a will, Madam Speaker, and they start to abuse one another, we still encourage them to go to the restorative justice centers. So, Madam Speaker, greater awareness, access, and use of both restorative justice and restorative justice practices are imperative. We need to change the mindset of our people. We need to get into their inner workings and minds so that they know not to fight it out, but talk it out. Madam Speaker, RJ is one of the many alternative justice resources available to teach our people that you don't have to use violence to resolve conflicts. Violence does not solve the problem. It increases the problem. Rounds of retaliation, gang violence, and reprisals. Jamaicans in every nook and cranny deserve to be afforded a safe space where they can sit and talk about what has happened, how they have been affected, who else might be affected, and what they would like to see happen in order to move forward peacefully. Jamaicans, Madam Speaker, deserve restorative justice. The truth, Madam Speaker, as I close, and to highlight a number of our programs, restorative justice has been a major success. And once it is used, there's a success. And the challenge of the Ministry of Justice is how do we get more parties where abuses and wrongs and crimes have been committed to really get into the program where they can get into a restorative justice circle and settle their matters.
The question is that the House do now adjourn for November 14, 2023 at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable House now stands adjourned.